Open for questions.
Derek, 3 years ago, Mr. Chancellor Depos talked about providing the coach a rocket ship.
Right.
To get anywhere, to get anybody.
Mm-hmm.
How much are you going to need that right now as you come in with National Signing Day, so close, and try to get the ball rolling here to try to maybe pull this group together, this commitment together that you may have had second thoughts since the change?
You know what? I think what happens in this process, and in terms of his rocket ship is fueled up, and we'll probably be blasting off in about 24 hours. But in terms of where we're at in this process, I think most of our young men wanted to know who their head coach was going to be. And I think, once that process was in place, what we found is that, young men can be nervous about the process when they don't know, but once they know, the resolve comes back. These young men are Vanderbilt men. We've identified these young men and those young men throughout the process who we go see here in the next week or so, which are our commits. We'll sit down with them and their families, and they'll know and understand that the vision is clear, the mission is clear, and I think you'll like what you see on signing day.
Derek, they said they knew after your interview that you were the one they wanted. Did you know it? Did you feel it?
I felt it. I felt it when I walked into the room. And I sat there, and I can't speak specifically who was in the room, but I will say this. It felt like family. And anytime you feel like you're amongst family, and that's the way I felt when I went to Stanford. It's family. It's clear. There are no hidden agendas. There's one goal. There's one mission. So, when they stated their mission, and I stated my vision, I think those two really went hand in hand in terms of what the ultimate goal was for these players in this program.
Derek, you already started calling recruits, even the ones that decommitted. Have you started that process yet?
No, I have not started that process. But I tell you what, in terms of evaluating, I've spent the last 12 hours, looking at the class, and moving bodies around, looking at exactly what our guys look like here. It's tremendous. We have a wealth of talent. And tremendously talented, and we're going to add more talent, to that roster. We're going to make sure that we fill in some of our recruiting holes, and I think, again, you'll like what you see on signing day.
Derek, you made your decisions.
You talked about the importance of training.
Yeah.
But what about your training, I guess, convinced you that the time is right now for you to be a head coach?
Well, when I look at the process, it's been a constant process, over time. I knew when I first took my first job, some 19 years ago. At some point in time, I wanted to be a head coach. When David Shaw took over at Stanford University, and he asked me to stay on, we had a conversation where he asked me to think about being the coordinator, and I said, I don't know, Dave. I'll think about it. His father, Willie Shaw, came to me and said, Derek, you are by far, the best candidate for this job. But you know what? You're qualified to be a head coach. He goes, and you need to know and understand that. He goes, I gave you your first internship opportunity in the NFL in 1994. He goes, you get it. You got it. And at that point in time, I've just continued to try to work towards what that process looked like. David allowed me the opportunity to share his vision. Of what that program needed to be, and as we worked through the process, and it became clear that there was only one opportunity out there at this point in time that was meant for me. There are a lot of opportunities out there in terms of jobs, but this one was the right one. Okay, the only one for me and my family. So, as far as I'm concerned, this is the best fit. It came at the right time, and the good Lord had a plan.
Has there been any verbal commitments from Stanford that expressed interest in coming to Vanderbilt, and if so, what's your philosophy?
Well, I'm not going to chase or get into what's happening with those players, because I believe that those young men, decided on a process long ago, which was to go to Stanford. I think in doing so, you have to be what you say you are. Okay, if you say you have character, but then you look to change halfway through that process because a coach leaves, then that means that you were never committed to the process. So really, is it about the school or the coach? Because in the end, when you talk about getting a world-class education and playing world-class football, Stanford's great, but I think Vanderbilt's it's on that same plateau. So with that being the case at Stanford, I choose not to indulge in any of that, in conversation now. With that being said, okay, there will be some student athletes who were being recruited by Vanderbilt who fall into that process. So with that being the case, if any of those student athletes fit our profile that are still out there, okay, who are in our pool to begin with, we'll look at that process and move forward.
How quickly are you filling out the coaching staff, and how quickly do you hope to have it set?
I hope to have at least 90% of my staff done by sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours. I know who they are. They've been identified, and I think you'll like the product. I think you'll like who they are. They bring a vast, amount of experience, from top to bottom. Some candidates within this program, Inhouse. I think that's important, to the process, and we'll make sure that, all those avenues are, exhausted. But, we'll be close to getting this thing done immediately, if not sooner.
Derek, in terms of the in-house candidates, have you spoken with Coach Hand or Coach Bankins, and what are your plans with them?
I will be speaking with them right after this process. But and I will say this: you have to respect, okay, and admire what's been done here. Okay, it's on that plateau. You're looking at the plateau of what it takes to be good and move from good to great. And I think those coaches have exhibited through, in the process of recruiting and through the process of their integrity towards this program that they deserve an opportunity to, sit down and have a conversation about, what their future holds here at Vanderbilt University.
You come as a defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
You've obviously got some background on the offensive side as well.
Right.
Kind of known as a defensive mind. What are you looking for on the offensive side of the ball?
Well, for us, I'm looking for, some balance to what you do. I think what happens is, as a defensive coach, the thing that hurts you the most is balance. Being able to make sure that, for us, when I look at our offense from the quarterback position to the wideouts to what's happening up front in the backfield, that there's balance. That there's not, just one guy. That when we line up and we put a product on the field, it's able to take advantage of matchups. Nowadays, football is about matchups, and everybody's looking to, identify what matchups, will actually lead to success. When I look at, our offense and our offensive personnel, I've had a chance to watch, in the bowl game. I looked at, in who we are, but really, there's guys in the program now that weren't available last year, that will be available this year. And so I'm looking for an offense that has versatility. You have to adapt your offense to what you have in your arsenal. And I think that's what's important. That balance in between run and pass, okay, we want to be explosive. We want to make sure that we know and understand that, situational football wins games. When you look at what you want to be, you want to make sure that your third down efficiency is high. You want to make sure that you can score points in the red zone, and that's by balance. That's part of the model that I saw at Stanford, but I have my own way of thinking in terms of what we want to do. We want to be exciting here. We want to see the ball go, up and down the field. Run or pass, we don't care. You just want to see explosive touchdowns. That's what I want to see too. So, with that being the case, the balance of making sure that we can, spread teams out as well as knock them off the ball, with our front and our run game, it's imperative to our success. So that's what we'll be about. But come out for spring ball, and I think you'll like what you see.
That being said, are you going to be open to the media coming to the practices?
Here's what we'll do. We'll look at that process as we move down the road. I want to be transparent, about what our product is, to you guys. But by the same token, the biggest advantage that you have is nobody knows really what you are. So in that, there's going to be a certain amount of secrecy, into what we do. And we're going to be guarded about, what our practices look like. But by the same token, we want you, the media and the fans, to be excited about the brand of football. So you got to see it at some point in time. So with that being the case, that's what we'll do.
Derek, what did you learn about Harbaugh and Shaw transition, and what will you try to do that you learned from David, and how you carry what came before you and how you become the head coach with your own vision?
Yes. In looking at, in the transition, it was hard. It was hard. Our kids were a little hurt by the, process. Everybody, assumed that it was more about in the coaching than it was about the players. And like I said before, coaches coach, players play. I know this. I mean, I in my last 3 years stint at Stanford, I never got on the field and got between the white lines and made a play. So with that being the case, I think David and Jim's approach, were both, fantastic for the program. Jim made that program blue collar, and that's what I am. Jim was blue collar in terms of, the shirts we wore. When I got to that campus, he gave us all those old gas station shirts with your name on it, right here, and it was a blue collar shirt, and so we wore those things. Now I thought it was a little weird, but we wore them. We wore them, and we walked around, and that was his message. We were going to be blue collar, versus SC, versus all those programs that looked down on what Stanford was. He said, we're coming, and we're coming to get you now. Not later, but now. With Dave, because what Jim did was he made it respectable, to talk about Stanford. What David did, David made it chic. He made it refined. He got behind it, and he talked about what the process was, and he talked about what our men were going to be. We didn't have to speak about it. All we did was just work to the process, and it was still the same grit. But that's what came out of that. He has a saying. It's called intellectual brutality, and when you put those two words together, it's a strong statement. When you can be intelligent, okay, and beat the brakes off people when they look to step in front of you, it means something. And so our guys are intelligent, okay. They play football and as fast and as furious as licensed by the 9-4 record as anybody in the country. So, in taking what I learned from Dave, it's just be you. Dave never tried to be Jim Harbaugh. I'm never going to try to be James Franklin. I'm Derek Mason. I'm your new head coach. And in that process, I just want to make sure that we just continue to move this thing forward and be about the process of working hard. And winning ball games, and we'll do that.
Coach, you talk about winning the East and winning the SEC. What team is your biggest focus going into the fall? Like, is it Florida, Mizzou, trying to shut them down and make a statement?
In order to be a big dog, you got to beat the big dog. And so you look at Missouri, and you got to focus your gaze on what it is, to get through your conference and get and find yourself exactly where you want to be. So that's where the gaze is. But remember, you're gazing out. But the process has got to be about you. Missouri doesn't beat us, we beat us. So we've got to make sure that we focus on us and what our process is, and we'll take on everybody week by week, game by game, and we'll make sure that late into December and January we're playing meaningful ball games. Yep.
Another question or two for anyone?
Coach, what was it like addressing your team for the first time?
Spectacular. This group is special. It takes off about 25 seconds to look across the room and see. I see Westerman sitting over there. He's standing over there. You look at these dudes and who they are and what they're about. You see it. They're Vanderbilt men, and I think for me, just looking at their processes, it made me proud. I looked at them, they looked at me, and we're family. So, we're on this thing together. Us, we team.
You ever recruited with a helicopter? High school game?
Oh, what?
Next.
No, I tell you what, I don't know what that's in reference to, but I think I'll get in the car, drive over and watch, games and just see where the process takes us. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.